Hey, it's Mazzy, and welcome back. This is my journey in music throughout the 1990s. Let's set the story here. In August of 1990, I turned 36 years old. December of that year, I became a father for the first time, my wonderful son, Joseph. And I still was into music. My business was thriving. It had started in 1986, my photo agency, and it was really building. I tell you, the 1990s was a great decade in advertising and photography, commercial work. But I was always buying CDs. In fact, we had a CD changer in the office, and we would play music all day, literally load it up and play anything. In fact, every Friday we'd go to Tower Records. And I just did a video last week, I think, on CDs, and you all responded. So there are a lot of people that are into the format. But remember, it's the music. It's the music. Doesn't matter the format. I'm happy that most of you buy physical music. I know people stream. It's too bad that artists get fucked, usually, unless you're massive. But it's a good way to preview. I will agree with that. But throughout the 90s, I was all in on CDs. So I decided for this video, I want to show music, CDs, just from the 1990s. Now, with a few exceptions, all these artists started in the 1990s. So this is new music throughout that decade. There are a few entrails, is that the right term, from the 1980s. And I'll start off with a band, definitely from early 1980s, but I think that sets a tone for my musical taste, and you'll see what I was into. But I was always buying new music, and I know a lot of people, as they get older in their late 30s and 40s, and kind of all they want to do is play Led Zeppelin and the friggin' Beatles. Jesus Christ. But I was into a lot of new music and experimenting, and I would go to Tower every Friday, a new release day, and we'd check things out. And that's when Tower had all those listening stations, which is great. You can preview certain CDs they were promoting. So these are in no particular order, and I'm just gonna go through them really quickly. Now, obviously one of the bands that I was really into throughout the entire 80s on IRS Records is REM. I loved during the CD era that some designers got carried away in labels with packaging. This is one that Tom Rashawn designed, and unfortunately it didn't hold up very well. But I'm showing this because I have such vivid memories. This came out, I believe, in 1991, Out of Time. This is when they were at Warner Brothers, obviously. And the song Losing My Religion just broke huge, massively, all over MTV. I remember when my son, he was basically not even a year old when this came out, holding him up, running around, blasting Losing My Religion, and which is probably what really happened, in fact. But that is a great memory. I just love this album, of course, Out of Time. Wonderful album. I love this. But the album that really kind of had a mood to me is when Automatic for the People came out. I think this is another Tom Rashawn / Michael Stipe creation. The limited editions, I like the design in this wooden case with vellum and everything. But I think this is their most beautiful record. This, to me, is like Boatman's Call, the Nick Cave record. But anyway, those are the only two that I'm really showing from the 80s that transferred over. Another band that I think is still great, and I know a lot of people like to laugh about this, and it was such a fun video, but this is still a great record. And I just played most of these records over the last few days, most of these CDs over the last few days. And then, of course, that is Blind Lemon. No rain, all that I see. I think this is a great record. Now, the whole vibe of the 90s, obviously there's grunge and there's indie, and the whole indie thing really exploded. And but I still like hooks, things that just capture you. MTV was still alive, and I watched some of it, but just I would hear about these bands, and obviously this is on Capitol Records, and this broke really big. Another one, now the grunge thing is complicated for me because I find to this day, some of those acts that I got into at the time, I get really tired of the vocals on it. And one in particular are the Smashing Pumpkins. And I think I bought their first 3 CDs as they came out. Of course, this is Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. Epic. CD. Great music. I even got the vinyl box set. Now, some of these things I have gone on to buy the vinyl component once they put out vinyl, but in this period, in the 90s, I wasn't buying any vinyl on with these bands at all. So I got a little tired of them. Now, here's something that I really, really enjoyed. I like introspective stuff. I like dark music. I like moody music. And of course, this isn't obviously not his first album, but this is Elliott Smith Either Or, excuse me. I just think this is a gorgeous record. And there's a whole trouble story about him and everything, but musically, the stuff holds up today. I like folk music. I like very lo-fi music, and Elliott Smith definitely fits the bill there. Pearl Jam 10. Jeremy, right? I love that. I thought that was a great song, great hooks. And I find myself losing interest in Pearl Jam pretty fast. Although I don't deny how great they are. I saw them at a club on Haight Street. I don't remember if it was when this album came out or the second album, but they played the I-Beam on Haight Street, which is across the street down the block from where Amoeba is now. And they were great live. And obviously, they're like the home team here in Seattle. And I know, a handful of friends that just think they're one of the greatest American bands playing now. And, I won't argue with them, but I haven't seen them in decades. But they're an institution here in Seattle, and you can't deny the greatness. And, almost like the last band standing of the Seattle grunge scene for the most part. But I think this is a really good album, but I don't really play it that much. Now, a band I used to see at Berkeley, there was a place, oh God, what is it? 81 Gilman Street in Berkeley. And I saw early on Green Day, and this is Dookie. And I think this is a great album. Now, they brought punk and they made it pop, and they broke punk to the masses. I mean, obviously everyone knew punk, but this is in the 1990s punk. And that power trio, man, really did it. And it's amazing how big Green Day became. And I saw them like early on, and they were just a fun, tight band. And I know, certain bands, do they hold up today and everything? I haven't seen them in decades, many years, but I think this is a really wonderful album, Dookie. And I did actually recently pick up a reissue of that. Now, one of the biggest albums of the 1990s, and I remember hearing it in the listening station at Tower before it really broke. So I'm not a trendsetter by any, and I don't remember how I heard about it. I hadn't heard the single yet. Obviously, this is in used bins everywhere. They probably pay you to take it now. But this is a really good record. I think, didn't Russ Ballard produce it? It's just great. It hit a nerve, and it sold massively. One of the biggest CDs of all time, definitely, in terms of sales, especially in the 1990s. And I just think it's still a great record, and I played it. But, when something comes so popular and so big, people tend to sometimes, after a little while, push it away and kind of turn their nose at it, which is unfortunate. I think she's amazing, and I don't follow her anymore, but I really like that. Now here's one. They're obviously not a one-hit wonder, but they are to me, and that's Bush. And the song is it Novocaine? No, Glycerine. I think is an incredible record. It's very dark. It's very moody. It's very got that throaty voice. This is by Bush, obviously, and this is 1994. This came out. I thought this was an incredible record, but I basically lost interest in them. I never really followed up on them. So Bush, to me, not really a one-hit wonder. That's actually a good record, but that's the song that, there's a hook to it in its darkness, which I love. Now, of course, an album that really needs no introduction. In fact, most of these CDs don't need any introduction, but Jeff Buckley's debut. And this is Grace. And of course, Hallelujah, the cover of that wonderful song by Leonard Cohen really kind of broke him and broke this. And even though that, I think it was John Cale who did one of the first great covers of it. It kind of got lost initially when Leonard Cohen recorded it. But then since this is one of those songs, it just has grown in stature and grown. And of course, He's been one of those tragic figures, dying way too young, just like his father, Jim Buckley. But this is a wonderful, wonderful record. And it was slow growing as an album, but once it hit, everyone was buying this record. But it's interesting because Hallelujah, I think there were some people I remember getting that because of that song, and then all of a sudden hearing this kind of gnarly sound that's almost like Led Zeppelin, and his voice and his arrangements, and there's a lot of fierceness in that, which is not on Hallelujah. And I just love how that song has been co-opted by a lot of religious groups, and there's really an S&M component to it. And there's a documentary on the song Hallelujah. So I urge you to watch that documentary. Next is the debut. Now, this is a really good record. I think this holds up. I like that rock and roll was really live and kicking in the 1990s. All these kind of indie bands, a little grungy, a little sloppy, a lot of ragged guitar, a lot of noisy guitar, and of course, Garbage, the debut of Garbage. Look, there you go, right? An amazing debut that also caught on and did really well. And I think I just have their first 2 records, but they never made a bad record. And I think they just put something out recently, and they actually did a James Bond theme. This band actually starts in the 80s, but they were very independent. In fact, they were always independent. They never really sold, but they had a cult following, and I used to see them all the time in San Francisco. And I liked, again, their dirgy sound and that monotone vocals of Mark Eitzel, and that's the American Music Club. This is before they had a major label on there. This is Everclear. This is the first one that I got into. They had a couple indie albums prior to this, but this is 1990 or 91, and I think this is a great record. But I got into them, and I'd see them, I'd buy all their records. I was even getting, I think the Mark Eitzel records was at Warner Brothers. I think my friend at Warner's was giving me his solo records. I've been accused of being Mark Eitzel, if you know what he looks like. I've had people come up to me over the years, not in many years, maybe a decade and a half ago, thinking I was Mark Eitzel. You can't see it from the pictures on this particular CD. But good group, good song. I think just a great Bay Area band. The Red House Painters were playing around that time, and this is one of my favorites. This is the debut, Down Colorful Hill. This was on 4AD, Mark Koselleck's outfit with the slowest music you'll ever hear. I love his slow voice. I love his just intensity. Sometimes there would be the searing guitar, almost like psychedelia, but it was as if you took a record and slowed it down to like 2. If there is a 2, great recordings, and I'm all in on the Red House Painters. And they would reflect San Francisco, the photographs, most of them, not in this right here, but are photographs from San Francisco and Golden Gate Park and Ocean Beach, the windmills in Golden Gate Park, just wonderful stuff. And this is from 1992, the first edition manufactured in the USA, 1992. Now, just at I think the beginning in 1990, this song was everywhere. And this band, I understand, was really from like the early to mid 80s and was trying to get a record together. They do one and then they say goodbye. And of course, that song, There She Goes by the Laws, this great British band, produced by Steve Lillywhite. I don't know the whole story. They worked on demos over the years. I'm not going to get in the whole story of these bands because I don't know them. I mean, I kind of used to read about the Laws, but this is an incredible record. There She Goes. What hooks, right? It's so jingle-jangly, and it's so 1960s, and it's an incredible record. And this started out as an art school project in Scotland. Of course, it's Belle and Sebastian. This is my favorite of theirs, and I couldn't get enough of this record and playing it in the house in the 1990s. Was it 97, 98, I guess? The Boy with the Arab Strap. An incredible record. Just the great Scottish voices, vocals, and the male and female, and it's pop, there's hooks, it's easy. I followed them for so long, even when they got into their sort of disco dancey stuff, but these first few albums, this and then Tiger Milk, and are just incredible records. And something that seemed that just, if you watch the movie High Fidelity, they mention them. They get a shout out in that. Just great, great stuff. So I'm wondering, take a little break here a little bit, but a lot of people I find, and some friends that are my age, my advanced age, stop listening to music around the time. Stop listening to new music around the 1990s when they got in their mid to late 30s. All they wanted to listen to was, again, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, and Bob Dylan, and Black Sabbath and whatever. But there's so much good music. And what age do you stop? Now, these are the bands, I guess, if you're now 50 to 60, these were the bands that you were growing up with. Is that right? My math is off, but these are bands that you were kind of listening to. If you were born in 1970, you would have been 20. So maybe if you were born in the 70s, up till 1980, you would be listening to this music. Maybe? Am I right? Answer me in the comments below. Of course, the Verve. Now, this is later, it's 97 maybe, not their first album. This is the one that got sued from Andrew Loog Oldham for sampling, I believe, that instrumental album of Rolling Stone songs that he did. But this is a wonderful album. This is like that whole Britpop thing that was happening, in the 90s. I got into that and quite a bit, and this is one of my favorite. More than Oasis, more than Blur. I like the Verve, and I love this record. So there you go, the Verve. I mean, there are other bands here I realize I didn't include. Pavement is one. Pixies would come out from the 80s, but there was all these offshoot bands and other bands. Of course, the Breeders. This is her second album, Last Splash. And Kim Deal and her sister. I love this record, and I recently got the vinyl of this 6 months ago, the expanded version, or the double record, because this was a CD. Now, one thing I want to throw out here, the only problem in the 1990s, or in the whole CD era, where bands had to try to fill up an hour and 20 minutes. They felt they had to go past an hour. Horrible, horrible concept. Just because you could fill it up doesn't mean you have to fill it up. Even worse are secret tracks. That's all I'll say about that. You know what secret tracks are. What a pile of bullshit secret tracks are. But anyway, the Breeders, there's a certain indie thing, and they had, a hit with this record. This did pretty well, at least on the MTV. Remember, 120 minutes. A lot of this stuff, maybe I would discover some of these on 120 and reading all the music magazines of the day. But I love the Breeders. I love this. And connected to that, an offshoot, someone who was in the Breeders. And this is one I quite like, and this is King by Belly. I believe this is their second album. But I like that ethereal, that dream pop thing was happening. Remember the whole shoegaze thing, the dream pop thing, the indie thing, the grungy guitars, the gnarly guitars. Rock and roll was great. Rock and roll kind of went in different directions, almost like a modern day psychedelia at times too. I think that's why I was attracted to it. But I'm a big fan of melody. And there was a lot of melody in a lot of these bands, not all of them. And so I would stick with them if there's melody. Talking about ethereal and dreaming, and I like that too. Another, of course, is Portishead, and I got all in on Portishead. There's sort of that electronic, psychedelic-y, hip-hop, moody music here. Of course, got those haunting vocals of Beth Gibbons, and just an incredible thing. Her record from last year, I believe it was, is really, really good. Is that her first solo record? But Portishead is, of course, a great British release as well, and I love this stuff. Going back to Britpop again, I always had a love-hate relationship with Oasis, and I won't get into the whole thing about Oasis. Fortunately, I saw them in a club in San Francisco called the Bottom of the Hill Club, Lower Potrero Hill, when they first came. I don't remember exactly what year that was. Probably after this came out. It's probably before the second album, but I'd have to look it up here. But of course, What's the Story? Morning Glory. This is the second album, I believe, right? Am I right? See, I don't even know the history of it. All I know is last August when I was in London, like the second or third day, all of a sudden the news hit that Oasis was getting back together to tour. And that's all I'd hear all week is Oasis is coming back. and tickets went on sale. And of course, Wonderwall, which when I first heard that, I thought, oh my God, these guys are ripping off the Beatles, and the whole concept, the song title, Wonderwall, George Harrison's soundtrack, Wonderwall. So their heads are so far up the Beatles' asses, and their egos. And having watched the documentary on that of the Wanker brothers, I still love them. I mean, I still love their music. I think there's hooks, but I think they're one of those bands that are really great and so not original, so unoriginal. But they captured Europe. They did okay in America, but not like they did in England and in Europe. One of my favorites, of course, in the 80s was Camper Van Beethoven, their quirkiness. But in the 1990s, Cracker, David Lowery, and this is a great record. This is my favorite record, particularly because of one track, which I think is a perfect song called The Big Dipper. There's something about that. When I was in New York a year and a half ago at the record show, I found a vinyl copy of this, and it sounds so good. And I wish they put this out on vinyl. I know some of their stuff. This is Virgin. I don't know about the rights here. I know Cooking Vinyl's putting some of their stuff up, but I think this is a perfect record. There's something about it where there's a quirkiness to their writing. They're rocking, they're a little sloppy, but in the best way of being sloppy. I think Camper Van Beethoven people thought they were like, they got pegged in the punk world, and they're the farthest thing from punk. And they get a little more, even a little more what we now call Americana on here at times, with gnarly guitars sometimes, and rocking guitars, and distorted guitars. And I love that beautiful California accent that David Lowery really picked up. Beautiful, beautiful songwriting. I Hate My Generation. I'm a Little Rocket Ship. So Cracker, The Golden Age. And the title track is incredible too. I just love that. Another album that really just came out of nowhere and was huge. And to be honest with you, after their second album, or after their third album, ironically, the third album was co-produced by David Lowery. But their breakout album from San Francisco, The Counting Crows, Adam Duritz and the Counting Crows, the song Mr. Jones was everywhere. And they had a little bit of the soulful Bruce Springsteen style of vocals. They had hooks. There's folk undercurrents. They got so big so fast. That's when some people like to just kind of push it away. I don't like that when people go follow indie bands and all of a sudden the ones that do break, they kind of push them aside because like they've left us. Kind of like when the Beatles left Liverpool to go to London. A lot of people in Liverpool were saying, wait a second. I mean, there are guys, but they left us. And I think some people like to be fans of bands, and they want to be the only ones that discover them. But these bands, they deserve to get big if they catch on. And of course, a lot of times, especially in the 80s and 70s, 80s, 90s, record labels would be behind to promote things. Sometimes it would catch, sometimes it wouldn't. That's where luck and timing come in. And if a record company or an artist knew what the audience would love, everything would be a hit, right? But it's not the case. So Counting Crows, the debut album, August and Everything After, is a really good record. I put this on again because I don't think I've listened to this in 10 years. And I enjoyed it. It does bring back memories. And that's the thing about certain time. Music brings back memories. So I'm reverting back to having a son go from, being born to 10 years old in this decade. And it was a really special time. That is a time sometimes you don't appreciate when it's happening. But I tell you, it's great. Next, I want to show a band that I missed the first time around completely. Aside from hearing the song that was getting a lot of play, I wasn't really listening to the radio, but I did hear I'm Going to Disneyland by Dada. But recently, I become friends with Joey Callie in the last couple of years. And this is, I believe, the second album, I think, the American Highway Flower, Dada. Some great hooks on this. And what's amazing about this is a trio. And they're not a power trio, but they have those elements of that. But there's a soothing guitar thing in there. Sometimes you get on these great guitar jam tangents. But what's brilliant about this are the harmonies, their vocals. These guys are great songwriters, and I've got to appreciate them over the last couple of years more and more. And I just realized a lot of these bands aren't about harmonies. You'd have an Eddie Vedder singing, you'd have the guy in Bush singing, you have maybe some harmonies occasionally in Oasis. You have, the Breeders, not really. Bell and Sebastian a little bit here. The Laws, maybe. But most of these bands, there's no harmonies. I am all about harmonies. Going back to Simon and Garfunkel and the Beatles and the Hollies and, all those great bands. I mean, Brotherly Harmonies, obviously. But not just that, just great vocals. And they got it in spades, man. And so this is kind of one of those bands I missed, but I'm excited to listen to them. And I, they should have become bigger. But I think at this point, when they were putting this stuff out, the whole grunge thing was still happening. That gnarly voice and those gnarly vocals of all that grunge shit, right? They can't sing. I'm kidding. Speaking about grunge, the only grunge band that I really fell in love with, and I still love, and they obviously, it's Nirvana. And of course, this changed everything. I think when this came out, it killed a lot of other music that had come up prior to this. All of a sudden, guitars were back, all that synthesizer crap of the 1980s and the little tinkling piano things. They were a great band. And I was fortunate enough to see them early on too. Just as they were breaking, I think. They were playing at a smaller venue in San Francisco, so they hadn't broke big time yet. And I had friends, obviously, at this is on, was it Geffen Records, I guess? Friends at the label, and I got a promo of this, and this is really good. Of course, Teen Spirit just changed everything. The video changed everything. It's such a wonderful record, and they were a great band. And of course, everyone apparently, I wasn't in Seattle then, came up to Seattle, and every friggin' band would be signed. Very much like what happened in San Francisco after 66, 67, when the Jefferson Airplane hit big on their second album, but all the labels would come to San Francisco and sign. Just like New York in around 76, 77 after the Ramones, and all, Sire Records almost signed half the bands out of CBGBs. But Liverpool, the whole British invasion and everything. So Nirvana, I mean, you can't deny the importance and the greatness of that band. It's too bad they were so short-lived. So that's my journey in the 1990s. There are plenty of bands I forgot that I probably even have on the shelf, on solo artists as well. But I just thought, in the 90s, CDs were the format that I was buying. So this is the best way for me to present the music of that decade. So from 36 to 46, these are a lot of the albums, even on the CD format I was listening to. So thanks again. Who did you listen to in the 1990s? Mazzy loves you.